Imagine this. A political leader miles away, whose words, whose actions, they just resonate so deeply with people living in a completely different country, so much so they become this really significant voting bloc there.
Hmm.
Today, we're diving into exactly that. The fascinating and, yeah, often surprising story of the Turkish diaspora in Germany. We want to explore their complex, sometimes really intensely emotional relationship with Turkey's President Erdoğan.
And we really want to move beyond those, simplistic takes like failed integration.
Exactly. Our mission here in this deep dive is to kind of peel back the layers. We want to uncover the deeper emotional currents that fuel this connection.
Right. We'll be drawing on some really interesting recent research work looking at emotion work, national identity among Turkish immigrants, how diaspora politics are
And it
evolving.
really help you understand this intricate dance between personal experience, national identity, and, well, global politics. It's
Yeah.
fundamentally about pride, belonging,
Yeah.
played out internationally.
That's-
Okay, so to really get a handle on this, we need to go back, right? Back to the history. Post-war Germany, the economic miracle, the Wirtschaftswunder.
1961. That's the key year. Germany and Turkey signed this recruitment agreement. They needed workers badly, so Turkish guest workers, the Gastarbeiter, started arriving.
But the crucial point here, initially at least, was that everyone saw this as temporary, like completely temporary. People will come, work, save up, and then head home.
And that core assumption, temporary, it shaped everything, especially immigration policy, or maybe more accurately, the lack of immigration policy back then.
Right. Germany wasn't really thinking of these people as future citizens.
Not at all. But, life happens, decades pass, these guests put down roots, they didn't leave.
Yeah. And migration changed too, didn't it? Families started reuniting. Some people came seeking political asylum.
Exactly. So now fast forward to today, you've got over 3 million people of Turkish origin living in Germany. It's a huge community, and they often find themselves right at the center of these ongoing debates about, adaptation or integration.
It's kind of wild, actually. Even after generations, you still hear this societal expectation sometimes that they should feel German by now.
hmm Despite study after study showing real systemic barriers to inclusion, things they face every day.
We have seen some changes in German citizenship law, though. Slowly, perhaps. Like the 1999 law that made things a bit easier, allowed dual citizenship for kids born there. Although originally they had that option obligation, right? Had to choose by 23.
Yeah, that caused a lot of heartache. But more recent changes have gotten rid of that need to choose, which does signal maybe a slow acceptance of the reality that this community is permanent, deeply rooted.
So, okay, you have this history. Temporary status expected, then permanent reality, but slow acceptance. How did that whole background kind of lay the groundwork for the specific emotional landscape we see today?
Well, this is where concepts like emotional communities are super helpful. Think of it like this. Any group, any community, shares unspoken rules about feelings.
Like what's okay to feel, how to show it.
Exactly. Feeling rules, how you manage and express emotions. And for the Turkish origin community in Germany, migration itself was this huge catalyst. It fundamentally changed their emotional lives, forced them to navigate a whole new set of social and emotional expectations.
And I guess discussing those feelings wouldn't always be easy, especially if you feel like you're being judged already.
Definitely not. Researchers found when they started interviewing folks, people were really hesitant to talk politics at first. You could feel this insecurity.
Why was that?
It seems rooted in what the researchers call affective stereotyping, basically being prejudged based on your perceived emotions or loyalties. They felt that being Turkish Muslim, maybe supporting Erdoğan, was already seen negatively frowned upon in Germany.
So holding back was a way to protect themselves.
Yeah, a deliberate defensive strategy, as the research puts it, a shield against judgment.
But once that trust was built,
Then a really powerful overarching story came out, especially from the first and second generations. They often told their life stories through this shared lens of humiliation.
humiliation, that's a strong word.
It is. And it wasn't just about individual slights, one bad experience here or there. It was described as a collective feeling, linking degrading treatment from institutions, from parts of society, directly to their national and religious identity as Turkish Muslims.
Wow. Are there specific examples of that?
Yeah, quite vivid ones. One man, Alhan, who came as a kid in '71, he remembered terrible insults at school, facing discrimination, trying to get jobs, being turned away from clubs.
Awful.
He even remembers seeing graffiti Turks out on walls. And one thing that really stuck with him was being called garlic eaters.
Ugh. It sounds minor, but it's designed to make you feel different, inferior.
Precisely. It marks you as other. And this collective feeling of being the outgroup, it led many, Alon included, to basically retreat into all Turkish social circles. And this was partly self-isolation, sure, but also maybe a way to try and suppress those feelings of inferiority, find some comfort.
So this feeling, this sense of humiliation, it didn't just fade away, it got passed down.
It seems so. Deeply internalized across generations, really shaping their sense of self-worth. And as a way to cope, you see this phenomenon called ethnocentric withdrawal.
What does that mean?
It means clinging really tightly to your roots, your Turkish culture, language, religion, glorifying the homeland almost. It's like an emotional retreat from the place where you feel rejected. You try to find pride and belonging there to push down those feelings of being degraded. It's a defense mechanism, really.
Okay, so if that's the emotional backdrop, this deep-seated feeling of humiliation, this yearning for pride, how does someone like Erdoğan fit into that?
Right. So once the researchers got past that initial reluctance, a very clear pattern emerged. Deep, deep admiration for Erdoğan. He was consistently described as a protector, even a savior of their national pride.
A protector.
Yeah. One man, Osman, used this really striking metaphor. He said, imagine 3 boys in a playground, always getting beaten up. Then one day, an older guy comes along and says, don't worry, I'm here now, I'll protect you. That, he said, is why I appreciate Erdoğan.
Wow, that's powerful. It sounds almost patriarchal, like a strong father figure stepping in.
There's definitely an overlap with those kinds of traditional feeling rules, yeah. Erdoğan's perceived strength, his decisiveness, his persistence, those qualities are really highly valued. They resonate with that feeling of needing protection.
And it wasn't just about protection, was it? It was also about pride on the world stage.
Hugely important. People expressed immense pride seeing Erdoğan represent Turkey globally. One person, Yusuf, said something like, before Erdoğan, nobody knew who the Turkish leader was. Now everyone knows him. He's one of the most prominent leaders. The West fear him getting stronger, Turkey flourishing.
So Erdoğan becomes synonymous with a strong Turkey.
Exactly. He embodies the nation's standing. And often, yeah, there's an anti-Western element woven in there, the West, as a source of threat or obstacle.
This is where it gets really interesting for me. It's clearly not just like standard political support. It feels much deeper, almost personal. So how does that powerful emotional connection hold up when things aren't going so well in Turkey itself? You know, economic problems, questions about democracy.
Right. You'd think that might challenge the image, wouldn't you? But here's the fascinating part. Even when people acknowledge problems, the economic crisis, inflation, democratic backsliding, they often didn't blame Erdoğan.
Really? Who did they blame?
Often external forces. Well, they'd see him as this, lonely man fighting against huge odds, battling many problems single-handedly. It didn't seem to diminish the core support.
How does that work psychologically?
This ties into that idea we mentioned earlier, but specifically something researchers call hubristic pride.
Hubristic pride. Okay, tell me more about that.
It's a kind of pride that's maybe not entirely tied to, concrete achievements on the ground. It's more about bolstering a fragile collective self-esteem. When you felt collectively humiliated, this kind of exaggerated pride, often projected onto a strong leader, helps suppress those feelings of inferiority.
So it's like Erdoğan's strength makes us feel strong, regardless of the details.
Kind of, yeah. He becomes the symbol who restores dignity, who wipes away the shame, even if it means overlooking or explaining away domestic problems. It's a powerful emotional strategy for reclaiming that sense of worth. That quote from Yusuf really captures it. Erdoğan equals a strong Turkey, feared by the West. That's the hubristic pride in action.
And this emotional connection, it's not just happening organically, is it? Turkey itself plays a role in nurturing these ties.
Oh, absolutely. Very actively. Since around 2010, Turkey has ramped up its diaspora engagement policy. They've set up institutions like the YTB Presidency for Turks Abroad and Related Communities and the Yunus Emre Cultural Centers.
What's the goal of these organizations?
Multiple goals, really. To bind the diaspora closer to Turkey through national and religious unity, to encourage them to participate where they live, yes, but crucially without losing their Turkish heritage, supporting Turkish language, strengthening Sunni Islam teachings.
And specific organizations are involved on the ground in Germany.
Yes. DTB is a major one, the Turkish Islamic Union for Religious Affairs. Their mosques often read Friday sermons sent directly from Ankara, which tends to promote a state-loyal perspective.
Right.
And then there's the UID, the Union of International Democrats, which basically functions as an AKP lobby group abroad.
Okay, so Ankara is actively cultivating this connection. How is that perceived in Germany?
Often, quite critically. You hear concerns about long-distance nationalism, worries that it hinders integration, that it weakens social cohesion in Germany.
Right, and the whole debate about loyalty, too. The idea of people living in a democracy but voting for what's seen as authoritarianism back home, that comes up a lot in German public discussion.
It does. But we need to be careful here. Is that picture complete?
What do you mean?
Well, stepping back, you see nation-states everywhere trying to leverage their diasporas,
Right.
It's about soft power, influence. It often creates friction with host countries.
Yeah.
That's the bigger context.
But is the Turkish diaspora itself unified in this?
Not at all. That's the crucial point. It's incredibly diverse, socioculturally plural, politically polarized, very far from monolithic.
So how does that play out in voting, for instance?
It's complex. Historically, many Turkish origin voters in Germany have actually backed left-leaning German parties, SPD, the Greens. But yes, when it comes to Turkish elections, you do see that strong majority voting for Erdoğan and the AKP. Like in 2023, he got, 65.5% of the vote from Germany? Higher than in Turkey itself.
And this seems really key, that 65.5% is of those who voted. What percentage of the total Turkish origin population in Germany actually voted for him?
That's the vital nuance. It's only about 17% of the entire Turkish origin community in Germany. So this idea, this myth that the majority all back Erdoğan unequivocally, it just doesn't hold up when you look at the numbers for the whole population.
And the community is divided on other issues, too.
Absolutely. You see deep divisions over things like the Gezi Park protests back in 2013, the decision to convert the Hagia Sophia back into a mosque, conflicts like Nagorno-Karabakh. There are fierce debates within the community.
And there are other groups active, too, right? Like the Grey Wolves.
Yes. Ultranationalist groups like the Grey Wolves also have a presence, and their influence is something the German parliament has actually tried to push back against. So yeah, it's a really mixed, complex, often conflicted community. Blanket statements about their loyalty just miss the mark.
It really highlights how states try to project power and identity across borders, doesn't it? Whether it's through diaspora outreach or maybe even through other means in our modern world.
Exactly. And it raises that fundamental question. How do we discuss these things without just focusing on national rivalries?
Right.
How do we center the actual rights and experiences of the individuals caught in the middle?
It makes me think about other ways an influence travels across borders today, like in the digital world.
That's a great parallel, actually. Think about the whole controversy around TikTok.
Right, the first big social media platform not from the U.S. to really challenge Silicon Valley.
Exactly. And you saw U.S. policymakers raising national security alarms, worried about Chinese government access to data content being suppressed.
So similar themes emerge, right? National identity, perceived threats, global power dynamics playing out, but this time on a digital stage.
Precisely. TikTok pushed back, of course, said their data practices were like U.S. companies, denied handing data to China, even offered to open up their source code.
But the underlying dynamic.
The underlying dynamic, as analysis suggests, was really about these geopolitical tensions between the U.S. and China, about the huge strategic and economic value of the digital space. And sometimes those big power struggles can obscure other important issues like platform competition or data privacy concerns that apply to all platforms, not just one.
So whether it's diaspora communities or digital platforms, we're seeing states trying to project influence and identity across borders in new ways.
And the challenge is how to navigate that. How do we have conversations that aren't just about which nation is winning, but about, individual rights, fair competition, genuine global collaboration?
Okay, so let's recap. We've journeyed through this really intricate story of Turkish origin identity in Germany. From the gastarbeiter beginnings, those deep feelings of national humiliation.
To the powerful appeal of Erdoğan as this figure of pride and protection.
We've seen how Turkey's own diaspora policies try to nurture that connection, but how that can also, maybe unintentionally, create divisions within the community and tensions with Germany.
And we've touched on how these dynamics, national identity, influence across borders, echo in other areas, like the digital sphere with TikTok.
What this deep dive really seems to show is that the political views of these transnational communities, they aren't just about failed integration or, lacking democratic values. That's too simple.
Way too simple. They're deeply tangled up in these complex emotional histories, shaped by decades of feeling like the other, and driven by that fundamental human need for pride, for belonging.
Which leaves us with a pretty big question, doesn't it? A final thought to consider. How can societies, both the host countries like Germany and the home countries like Turkey, and maybe global actors too, how can they better understand and actually address these really deep emotional and identity needs?
Yeah. How do we move towards fostering real inclusion, real participation, instead of inadvertently fueling distant nationalisms or just making divisions worse in this world that's only getting more connected?
It suggests we need more than just policy changes. We need perhaps a lot more empathy, a deeper understanding of these human narratives.
Exactly. Understanding the heart, not just the politics. The complex loyalties of Turkish immigrants in Germany. And here's the fact that often catches people off guard. Many Turkish origin voters in Germany actually show stronger support for Recep Tayyip Erdoğan than voters in Turkey itself.
Yeah, it's quite striking, isn't it?
It really is. So this immediately makes you wonder, is this simply a failure of integration, as some headlines might scream? Or is there a much deeper, more emotional story playing out beneath the surface? We're going to try and peel back those layers.
That's exactly where we're headed. Our core source for this deep dive is a really insightful study from the Max Planck Institute for Human Development. It's titled Emotion Work, National Identity, and Odosonism Among Turkish Immigrants in Germany. And it introduces crucial concepts like emotional community and emotion work. These really help us move beyond those, simplistic explanations and paint a much more nuanced picture.
Absolutely. We're here to distill the most vital knowledge and insights from this research, give you a clear and nuanced understanding of this often misunderstood demographic. So let's get into it. Okay, so to truly grasp these emotional currents, we need to rewind a bit. Back to post-war Germany. The country's economic miracle, the Wirtschaftswunder, created this massive demand for labor.
A huge vacuum, really.
Exactly, which led to the 1961 recruitment agreement with Turkey, bringing in what were known as guest workers, Gastarbeiter.
Right, guest workers. And the key word there was guest. The initial idea was always temporary.
People would come, work, contribute, and then presumably return home. But, well, history shows us that's not how it played out for many, many people.
No, not at all. They stayed. They built lives.
Creating the vibrant community we see today, over 3 million people of Turkish origin in Germany.
And that historical foundation is absolutely critical.
Right.
Because it forged these unique and lasting migration experiences. The shift from an intended temporary status to effectively permanent residency, that profoundly reshaped everything. Not just where people lived, but their whole emotional landscape, their sense of identity.
How they related to Germany, to Turkey.
Precisely. I mean, when you think you're just visiting, your relationship to a place is vastly different than when you realize you're putting down roots, but maybe you still feel not fully embraced.
Okay, let's unpack this. What did those early years actually feel like? For many of these first and even second-generation Turkish immigrants, the Max Planck study identifies this overarching narrative of humiliation that permeated their experience.
Humiliation is a strong word, but it seems accurate based on the accounts.
Yeah, the study shares an anecdote that really hits home. Take Ilhan, for example. He migrated at age 5, 1971.
So very young.
Very young. And he recounted experiencing relentless insults in primary school, things like Turk and Raus.
Turks out. Horrible stuff.
Awful. Then facing blatant discrimination in workplaces where, people were murmuring about me when I entered the canteen, just feeling excluded.
Yeah.
He also vividly remembered social rejection, like being questioned at discos just because he was Turkish.
Little things, big impact.
And the study even mentions the derogatory garlic eater's insult, a stark example of the kind of negative stereotyping they faced. These insults, however small they might seem on the surface, they can leave such deep scars, can't they?
They absolutely can. And what's fascinating here is how these intensely personal, individual experiences of humiliation sort of coalesced. They formed what the study terms an emotional community, governed by specific feeling rules.
Okay, what does that mean, feeling rules?
Well, humiliation at its core isn't just unpleasant. It's a profound act of disrespect. It attacks your honor, your identity, threatens your very sense of self-worth. So this collective experience of feeling degraded didn't just hurt individuals, it led to what's termed ethnocentric withdrawal.
So turning inward, basically.
Exactly. Turning inward, seeking solace and validation primarily within their own culture, among their own people. Think of it as deliberately turning away from the perceived coldness, the rejection of the host society.
And building a stronger internal world instead.
Precisely. A world of shared identity, mutual validation. And this was a powerful form of what the study calls suppressive emotion work.
Suppressive emotion work.
Meaning actively suppressing those feelings of inferiority imposed from outside and, in turn, evoking a fierce pride in their Turkish origins.
Right, so feeling denied, unwelcome, almost like second-class citizens. And as a response, many clung incredibly tightly to their Turkish roots, valuing that national identity, deliberately instilling cultural heritage in their children. Even if they had no actual plans to ever return to Turkey themselves, it became vital, a source of self-worth, of pride in the face of that external negativity.
It really did. And how profoundly did that clinging to roots shape the children born in Germany? Was it a conscious act of resistance or just a natural pull?
Well, that's interesting.
It seems like a fascinating blend of both, really. For the children, it was often this inherited narrative of belonging, almost a protective shield.
Passed down from parents who'd felt that humiliation.
Exactly. Parents felt the strong imperative, often, to ensure their kids retained a clear sense of who they were, where they came from. It wasn't just about, preserving culture. It was about ensuring self-esteem, ensuring identity in an environment that often questioned their belonging, and implicitly or explicitly.
So yeah, a conscious act of passing down a powerful, proud identity.
But also a very natural, almost instinctive gravitational pull towards a community that offered acceptance, affirmation, the one place they felt they truly belonged.
Okay, so this deep-seated emotional history, the perceived humiliation, the ethnocentric withdrawal, it didn't just shape identity. It created a particular lens, didn't it? A way they would later view external leadership. And this, of course, connects directly to Turkish politics, especially the dramatic rise of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan. Though the study notes that, initially, many interviewees were actually quite reluctant to discuss politics.
Yeah, there was this fear of being frowned upon or criticized within Germany for their views.
Which is telling in itself.
It really is. It highlights a defensive strategy, as the study calls it, a prevailing feeling rule within the community, designed to protect against effective stereotyping. Meaning being judged and categorized based on negative emotional biases against their group. They knew expressing certain political views could lead to negative judgments, so they managed their expressions carefully to avoid more marginalization.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Once that trust was built with the researchers, a powerful admiration for Erdoğan often emerged. It was directly linked to this emotional backdrop we've been discussing. One interviewee, Osman, used this powerful metaphor. It really drives it home.
Oh yeah, the playground metaphor.
That's the one. Imagine 3 boys in a playground, constantly beaten by the other boys. One day, an elderly guy shows up and tells them they shouldn't worry about being beaten anymore, since he is and will be there to protect them. That is the reason why I appreciate Erdoğan.
Wow. That metaphor is incredibly revealing, isn't it? It perfectly illustrates how Erdoğan is perceived as a protector, a savior of national pride, particularly, the study notes, by male interlocutors who often value strength, decisiveness.
They see his assertive leadership on the world stage.
Right. Whereas another interviewee, Yusuf, put it, Turkey is no longer scorned, but feared. That deeply satisfies this long-held desire to feel strong, proud. It directly counteracts those decades of perceived humiliation and disrespect.
And the study makes a distinction here. It notes that this admiration often manifests as hubristic pride.
Yes, hubristic pride, which is distinct from authentic pride.
Okay, break that down.
Well, authentic pride is usually tied to specific earned accomplishments. Hubristic pride, the study suggests, is more of a compensatory mechanism.
Compensating for.
For a fragile self-esteem, maybe a lingering sense of inferiority. It's about suppressing those feelings by appealing to these exaggerated national sentiments. A feeling of collective strength, even if it's maybe not based on concrete achievements in the same way.
So what does this look like in practice? Does it mean they might dismiss criticisms of Erdoğan or double down on support even when there are obvious issues?
Exactly. This hubristic pride is key to understanding their reactions. In practice, it often means that while people might acknowledge Turkey's economic problems or democratic challenges, they tend to attribute any faults to external factors, or they see them as minor compared to the huge symbolic victory of restored national dignity.
So the pride outweighs the problems. emotionally speaking.
Pretty much. You hear sentiments like him being a lonely man fighting global forces, or even a kind of messianic character who's uniquely positioned to ease the nation's pains.
Regardless of any potential flaws or policy failures.
Right. It creates this powerful emotional shield, you see. Loyalty to the leader becomes deeply intertwined with loyalty to the nation's renewed pride. It makes objective criticism very difficult to accept, or sometimes even to voice.
This brings us to that striking contrast in voting behavior we mentioned at the start. When it comes to German elections, Turkish origin citizens tend to vote center-left, historically the SPD, though there's been a recent shift towards the CDU. More pragmatic choices, perhaps?
Seems that way. Focused on their lives in Germany.
But then, in Turkish elections, they show significantly higher support for Erdoğan's AKP. Like in the 2023 presidential elections, Erdoğan's got, what, 67% of the vote among Turkish citizens in Germany?
Yeah, a notably higher rate than he received within Turkey itself.
Which really highlights the paradoxical nature of the diaspora, as the study puts it.
It does. And the community isn't monolithic either. It's politically diverse. You have internal divisions along religious lines, Sunni versus Levi, for example, and cultural and political lines, too, AKP loyalists versus secular critics or Kurdish nationalists. It's complex.
But the German public, or maybe the media, often misinterprets that strong Erdoğan support as just universal lack of loyalty or failed integration.
Right, whereas the study powerfully suggests it's a much more complex emotional response, tied to identity, tied to those historical experiences of humiliation we discussed, and it's also crucial to bust a common myth. It's not all Turkish citizens in Germany who support Erdoğan.
Good point.
Given about a 50% voter turnout in Turkish elections, among those eligible in Germany, roughly 17%, maybe 1 in 6, of all Turkish origin people in Germany actually voted for him in 2023.
So, a significant segment, absolutely, but far from everyone. That's an important clarification.
Definitely.
And Turkey, for its part, hasn't been passive. They've been actively engaging with the diaspora since around 2010.
Right.
Recognizing their importance.
Very much so. They've set up institutions like the Presidency for Turks Abroad and related communities, the YTB.
And the Yunus Emre Cultural Centers, the YKM.
Exactly. The goal is to enhance relations, often based on national and religious unity. Encouraging people to participate in their host societies, yes, but without losing their cultural heritage.
And there are other organizations, too, like DDB, the Turkish Islamic Union for Religious Affairs, which is huge in Germany, and the Union of International Democrats, UID.
Right. UID is known as a diaspora mobilization group, close to the AKP. These are actively used to project Turkey's influence, mobilize the diaspora.
Which, of course, can sometimes lead to intra-community conflicts and definitely tensions with German institutions.
Of course. And zooming out a bit, Turkey's active use of these cultural and religious institutions, it essentially turns them into platforms for projecting influence abroad.
Platforms, like digital platforms.
It's analogous, yeah. These institutions become arenas where the nation-state can work to reinforce national identity and loyalty within its diaspora, even far beyond its geographical borders. It's a strategic way to maintain connections, foster that sense of national unity among citizens living overseas.
And these tensions aren't just theoretical. They have very real-world consequences, don't they?
Absolutely.
We've seen things like the German Bundestag's motion against the ultranationalist Grey Wolves movement in Germany. And the study also knows how German politicians' reactions can sometimes fuel resentment, like strong critical reactions to pro-Erdoğan rallies. Contrasted with what some perceive as relative silence on, say, pro-PKK demonstrations, PKK being the Kurdistan Workers' Party.
Yeah, that perception of a double standard can really deepen that sense of prejudice, that feeling of being unfairly targeted among some Turkish origin communities, reinforces that feeling of not being fully understood or fairly treated.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it feels like we've moved far beyond those simplistic headlines about failed integration.
I think so.
What we've uncovered are these profound emotional undercurrents beneath the political surface of the Turkish diaspora in Germany, driven by history, by perceived humiliation, and this powerful, enduring desire for national pride and respect.
And bringing this all together, it really raises a crucial question, doesn't it? What can other host nations learn from Germany's complex experience, specifically learn about the emotional roots of political behavior and identity in migrant communities. It's clearly not just about policy or demographics.
No, it's about these deeply felt experiences and how those feelings shape allegiances, shape votes, shape identity itself.
Exactly.
That's a powerful way to frame it, highlighting the deeply felt experiences. And maybe that leads us to challenge you, the listener, to consider this. When we see diasporic communities making political choices that seem counterintuitive from the perspective of their host country, how much of that is actually a strategic emotional response, a response rooted in historical experiences, rather than just a simple rejection of new values or failed integration? It's a powerful reminder, I think, that identity is fluid. And belonging, well, that can be deeply, deeply tied to narratives of the past, shaping choices in the present in ways we often don't immediately see.